Daisy.
And I'm Terry.
And this is the Monday Mindset Podcast,
where we share things of interest to us and hopefully to you.
So let's get started with episode number 237.
And this week, it's Daisy's turn to share something. Daisy, what do you have?
Well, Terry, this week I have an episode from, and you said I would go back to this. We talked about briefly in the summer the sad news that Michael Mosley had died while he was on holiday in Greece. And for some reason, it just sort of came to my mind. So I thought, I'll go and have a look because I hadn't shared anything from his podcast for a while. And I thought maybe there would be a bit of a stock there. And you'd said there's probably some more to share. So I went and had a look. So it was his podcast called Just One Thing. I used to like them because they were nice little short podcast episodes about just one thing, and usually just one small thing that you could change in your life that hopefully would make a difference, and all sorts of different things. I've done a couple of episodes. I think the standing on one foot, I think, was him, and I forget the other one that I did. But this one, and you'll know immediately, and the listeners will know shortly why I chose this episode. This episode is called Volunteer. Terry is nodding.
I see where this might be going.
So I'll just quickly read you the blurb about the episode, and then I'll just tell you what the episode's about. But in this episode, Michael Mosley discovers that, as well as being a very rewarding thing to do, volunteering your time, labour, or spare room can really benefit your health too. Michael speaks with Dr. Edith Chen from Northwestern University in the US, who has been investigating the power of helping others. And they do talk about some interesting studies. And she tells Michael about these studies, showing that by boosting your mood and empathy, volunteering can lower chronic inflammation, cholesterol, and even help you lose weight. It's always a great way to meet new people as well. And then, meanwhile, Matt gives back to his local community by volunteering at a food bank. And that's the other thing that they have in all of these episodes, is that Michael finds someone who will put this just one thing of the episode into practice, and they report back through the episode about how it went. And the other thing that I thought was interesting, it was interesting that there was this focus on a food bank, that's where Matt volunteered, because my mum volunteers weekly at a local food bank and she loves it. She's been, I'm not even sure how long she's been doing it. Something that she took up, one of the things that she took up after my stepfather died. She was, finding some different things to do. And this was something that she started doing and really enjoyed it and found really benefited from the social side and has made lots of new friends from it. So, it benefited her in all sorts of ways that we'll go on to talk about some of these. But that's another reason why I thought, I think I'm going to enjoy this episode. So studies show that helping others can reduce stress and boost mental health in both the volunteer and the recipient. And it might also be good for your heart by lowering cholesterol and reducing chronic inflammation. They focus on this guy, Matt, in the episode, who is a land manager for green energy projects in Glasgow. And he is quite busy in his work, apparently. And in his leisure time, he does lots of outdoorsy stuff like swimming and hiking. He says he's not super fit and he suffered from depression in the past. And we find out later on that he's recently moved to the area as well. So he doesn't know many people. So he decides he's going to volunteer for a local food bank. Apparently he did a bit of volunteering during the pandemic, especially because he had more time, but as he went back to work, he ran out of time and that sort of slid a bit. He volunteered. There were people who would, go and pick up medication for others and go and collect some shopping and, things like that. And so, he's done a bit of volunteering and had enjoyed it. So the challenge for him was to volunteer twice over the next week in whatever he chose to do. And then they mention a study from 2016 that was done on over 7,000 older Americans. And those that volunteered spent 38% fewer nights in hospital. They did a follow-up study in 2020, and that showed that just 2 hours a week of volunteering was linked to lower risk of early death and improved sense of well-being compared to people who didn't regularly volunteer. But they did mention that motive matters, that volunteering should be generous and heartfelt to be truly effective. Another study asked older people what their motives were for volunteering. And the findings were that people who volunteered lived longer, but this was only true of the volunteers who genuinely wanted to help others rather than just doing it to make themselves feel better. So the suggestion from this is that altruism is an important factor in how volunteering may affect your health. And one way it can impact health is by lowering blood pressure, which apparently is one of the world's biggest killers. Another study from the US followed older adults for 4 years, none of whom had high blood pressure to begin with. Those who volunteered for about 4 hours a week were 40% less likely to have high blood pressure by the end of the study. So again, quite a big difference. Michael raised the question, is it just that people who volunteer tend to be healthier anyway and more health conscious? Or does volunteering actually have a direct effect on your health? Dr. Chen talked about how they tested the hypothesis that volunteering is beneficial for your physical health through an intervention study with a random sample of high school students. One group volunteered weekly for 1 semester versus a control group. And they studied physical markers, obesity, cholesterol, and inflammation before and after the volunteering program. And the volunteering in question was an after-school program with elementary school students, a range of different clubs and things that they were doing. And there were lower levels across the board in the volunteering group versus the control group, even accounting for baseline levels. But why? So they go on to talk about what are some of the reasons why we get those health benefits. And Dr. Chen talks about how there are psychosocial benefits of volunteering that then translate into physiological and physical health effects through mind-body relationships. Those who showed the biggest decrease in negative mood also showed the biggest decrease in inflammation. This suggests that volunteering boosts mood, and better mood helps with inflammation. And those who showed greater increases in empathy also showed greater decreases in inflammation. And the inflammation tests they use, for anyone who's interested, are C-reactive protein and interleukin-6. Higher levels of those tend to show greater risk for diseases like heart disease, stroke, and diabetes later in life. Another question Michael asked was about the social factor. How important is that? So is it important to do volunteering that is with other people, like the food bank example, or is it as beneficial when you're doing something on your own? They used examples like, doing some baking that's for something or whatever, but something that's you're doing it solo, but you're still doing it for a volunteering, altruistic, giving type basis. She says it's unknown through experimental trials whether the benefits are greater where other people are involved or not. You can still be helping and giving of yourself with time, labour, whatever it is. But observational studies suggest that giving time, for example, is far more beneficial than just donating money. Another question was, is there an optimum time commitment? So mentioned in some of these studies, that 2 hours a week or 4 hours a week is there this sort of optimum amount that you have to do to get the benefits? And she said, no, not really. The key thing is that it becomes a regular habit, something that you incorporate into your life rather than a set number of hours. something that's regular and consistent is better than a one-time action. But it doesn't really matter, how often it is. It depends on your life, your other commitments. It might be once a week, it might be once a fortnight, it might be a monthly thing, but it's this consistency. And like you've said about all sorts of other things, it's making it part of yourself, part of who you are, which, if you do something regular, it becomes part of who you are, doesn't it? And so they check back in with Matt, see how he's got on. And during the episode, they did a couple of check-ins, and in the first check-in he'd done a couple of hours at this food bank, and he found that he was feeling really positive in himself. He said he went into it with quite a lot of anxiety. It was all new to him, and meeting new people and learning how to do things, but he said he really enjoyed it. It was a great laugh, and he was looking forward to doing another shift. And they checked back in with him at the end, and he'd done another shift, and he said actually it was fairly physically active. There was lots of moving around and putting things on shelves, very sociable. This is where he talked about how he was fairly new to Glasgow, so it was a fantastic way to meet new people. They had a real good laugh while they were doing the work, and he was planning to continue with a shift every other week. And that's certainly, like I say, that's what my Mum found. She found it, it's just great to do something to get out of the house, and always has fun when she does it, and has led on to socializing outside of that with a real range of people. They're not all just like her. There are some people like her, but there are some people who are a lot younger. There are some people who are, working full-time, part-time, doing this, doing that, all sorts of interests. But what she's found is that because you're sharing, I suppose, this wanting to give of your time, and maybe even the food bank doesn't necessarily put you into a political one political camp or another, but I suppose you're likely to be more leaning one way than the other. So there are just sort of things that probably quite core principles that you all share, even though you have this wide range of different people who are there. You have some sort of core principles that you all share. So it's been a really good way for her to meet quite a variety of people that she wouldn't have met otherwise.
That's amazing. I was excited as you started talking about it, because the type of benefits you're talking about, we've talked about before, about, social things and laughter and connecting with people. And it's nice to hear that there's some research that actually shows even if the voluntary work doesn't bring you in contact with other people, the altruistic part, the motivation behind it, that's fascinating that can affect our health.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And as you know, the reason this caught my attention, which I haven't mentioned yet, is that that's exactly what I was doing today. I won't go into all the details, but as you all know, I applied for a job recently. I didn't get the job I was going for, but I really wanted to work for this organisation and would love to work for them in the future as paid employment. But I really wanted to experience working there. So I asked them about whether they might have any volunteering positions. And so they asked me to come along and have a chat with them, which I did the other week. And today I went along for a taster day to see how I find it, and presumably also, I would imagine anyway, for them to find out, how I got on and whether I would be suitable. And it's a great place. I love it. It's a plant nursery, but the organisation works with people who have various different disabilities, and they have different parts of the organisation. But this part is a plant nursery. It's a lovely site, actually. It's an old farm, I think, with these beautiful old stone buildings. I mean, centuries old. So I've been there as a customer buying plants. So it's fantastic from that alone. And I've always really enjoyed the atmosphere up there. There's always a real joyous feeling. You can tell that everyone's just sort of happy to be working there and really enjoying themselves. But I got a tour the other day telling me about all the other elements of the site. So they have, an area where they're doing woodworking. They're wanting to develop that and creating different things to sell. The plant nursery is already doing really well and making money that way, but they're wanting to build up this woodworking area and made some fantastic benches and things. Then they have these areas where there's a vegetable garden area where they have all sorts of, they're all individual plots, and they grow things from seed throughout the year, and it was immaculate. Apparently in the summer it was full of stuff. So there's this big grassy area where they practice things like, mowing lawns and using strimmers. And there are also people there who can teach them how to repair the mowers and things like that. And then they often go out and work on gardens for people who, older people who can't do it themselves, disabled people who can't do it themselves. They'll go out and do some garden maintenance work as well. And many more things. So there's all these different elements to it. And I just really found it interesting. Work placement, really encouraging people to develop new skills. A couple of the words that the guy who was showing me around used over and over was really looking to build people's independence, give them a sense of empowerment. These are words that are so important to me personally, but that I've always felt I really want to try and pass on to other people. That was one of the things I found with keto. Empowerment was a word I always felt like it really gave you a sense of empowerment to really feel like you were getting a control of your health. So, these are words that are really important to me. Empathy and caring, patience. So lots of things as he was walking around and telling me about the place, telling me about their ethos, about things that were important. It was just like all these little checklists going off in my brain, and I was really excited about it and really wanted to do some volunteering there. So yeah, that's what I was doing today. I had a really good day there today. They were doing crafty things, making different decorations. They've decided, because of course it's the run up to Christmas, which they're all hugely excited about, and they've decided on a Harry Potter theme for their Christmas party. So we were making floating candles and all sorts of things like that. So yeah, it was great. It was full on. And for me, one, I'm an introvert anyway, but I spend most of my time on my own, working at home on my own. So, it was basically the extreme opposite of that. I spent all day having to be very engaged, very engaging, very mindful of what's going on, often trying to sort of manage lots of conversations at once, helping people with crafts. And yeah, so it was tiring, but it was very enjoyable. And all those kind of things I could, they're the kind of things that would just get easier as I get used to doing them regularly. It was a bit of a shock to the system. 0 to 60 in one day.
I bet you'll sleep well tonight, Daisy.
Yes.
Another part that I was catching when you were talking about it that I think is really exciting for you in it is that all of those things that you value, the empathy and, helping empower people and help them be independent. Also, some of these things you're talking about involve creativity, and that's an outlet that's really valued by you from my experience with you. And so it's such a nice way of kind of weaving it all together.
Yes, that's what it feels like. It feels like exactly that. It feels like a weaving together of lots of different threads, lots of different things, different skills that I've acquired, different experiences I've had. I think, the fact that I have many decades behind me has, made me develop a bit more patience, a bit more easygoing. a bit less. I mean, I have anxiety problems, but still fairly, in that kind of environment, fairly calm and just happy to go with the flow. And it's an interesting kind of thing that circles back to something I did way back when I was in the sixth form at school. Used to do some volunteering at school for a very, very similar organisation. They'd come over in a minibus and we'd go into town and have a cup of tea and wander around the shops and things. Also had a part of their organisation that had a plant nursery, a little bit like this, and went and visited that, went for trips to the seaside and things. So it's something that I've kind of done a bit of before and really enjoyed doing it then. So yeah, it just feels like, as you say, all these different things that have happened over the years sort of weaving together now. It feels right, and it just, I think just doing something that, just instills that sense of purpose and feeling like at the end of the day that, that people have enjoyed your company, that have enjoyed, you helping them make floating candles or, whatever it is. And they just, the guy who showed me around said, it is such a fun place to work, and you'll love spending time with these guys. And that's exactly it. We had fun. They were great people to spend time with for a day.
And who knew when you first started this that you would come upon this information about how that's going to also contribute to your health benefits that you're seeking at this stage in life as well. So again, another way of it weaving together with another important thing in your life.
Exactly. So I thought that's one of the reasons it caught my eye, because it's something I thought I'd be able to report back to you on the benefits in a few months when I've been volunteering for a while. I'm not sure exactly when it'll start, probably in the new year. They're super busy with Christmas, and there are a few things I have to do. There's some, basically, you really have to go through the kind of steps that you would be doing if you were a paid employee. There are important things, important checks, police checks, and some training that you have to do before you can be let loose as anything more than just going along for a taste a day. But yeah, I think I went down okay. Apparently there were good reports back about me at the end of the day. So I think they're going to take me on.
Oh, that's exciting, Daisy. And like I said, exciting too. Learning about this, it's made me already start to ponder. Is there something I could do volunteer-wise in my area? And it also reminded me of a time in my life, the volunteer activity I did do in the past was I had a little sister through Big Brothers Big Sisters.
Oh, yes, I've heard of that. That sounds like a lovely program.
Yeah. And, I'm thinking, wow, it's been a long time since I've been actively involved in something like that. So thanks for this push, too.
You'd be great at that. I can completely imagine you doing that.
Well, Daisy, I think we have a catch-up episode coming in the not-too-distant future. And in that, I will do a little catching up of the standing on one foot from Michael Mosley as well.
Oh, yes, I'd forgotten about that. Aha, good. Look forward to that. Yes, that will be our first episode of the new year, I believe.
Very good.
Fantastic. Okay, well, I apologise if that was an all about me episode.
I love it.
Pretty much. But as you can tell, I'm quite excited about it. So
it's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Watch this space.
Updates to come.
Definitely. Okay, well, until we see each other again, I hope you have a very wonderful week.
Take good care, everyone.